Stop scrolling for a second. When a woman tells you her problems, your response in the next few moments can quietly decide whether you become unforgettable or forgettable. She's not just talking, she's measuring you, weighing you, and deciding what kind of man you really are beneath the surface. Listen carefully, because most men misunderstand this moment, and that misunderstanding costs them attraction, respect, and emotional leverage without them ever realizing why. When a woman shares her problems with you, it feels like vulnerability, it feels like trust. And yes, part of it is. But there is also a silent test running in the background, one she may not even consciously understand herself. She is observing how you handle pressure that isn't yours. She is watching how you react to emotional weight without collapsing under it or trying to escape it. This is not about fixing her life. It is about revealing yours. Most men rush into solution mode. They interrupt, they analyze, they offer advice like a mechanic diagnosing an engine. In their mind, they are being helpful, logical, strong. But what she experiences is something very different. She feels unheard. She feels managed, not met. And quietly, her nervous system registers that you don't fully understand emotional depth. That doesn't make you a bad man. It makes you a predictable one. Then there are men who go the opposite direction. They over-empathize. They absorb her pain like a sponge. They agree with everything. They get emotional on her behalf. They turn her problem into their own distress. And while this may look caring on the surface, it triggers something uncomfortable inside her. She begins to feel like she has to be strong for you. Attraction fades where polarity collapses. What she is really testing is your emotional posture. Can you stay grounded when emotions rise? Can you listen without drowning? Can you care without carrying? This is where masculine presence is revealed, not through dominance or silence, but through steadiness. She wants to feel that she can bring chaos to your doorstep, and it won't shake the foundation of who you are. There is another layer most men never see. When she shares her problems, she is also testing your boundaries. Will you try to rescue her to feel needed? Will you overextend yourself to earn approval? Or will you remain centered, supportive, and self-respecting at the same time? A man who loses himself in her problems signals insecurity, even if his intentions are pure. A man who dismisses her problems signals emotional unavailability. Neither creates safety, neither builds desire. The men who pass this test do something subtle. They listen deeply. They reflect calmly. They don't rush. They don't minimize. They don't dramatize. Their energy says, I see you, and I am still myself. That combination is rare. That combination is powerful. Here is the uncomfortable truth. When a woman shares her problems with you, she is imagining a future version of you under stress. She is asking herself, can this man handle life when it gets heavy? Can he lead emotionally without controlling? Can he support without disappearing? Your answer is not in your words, it is in your nervous system. If you understand this, you stop trying to impress her in these moments. You stop trying to earn points. You stop auditioning. You simply show up as a man who is solid, attentive, and unshaken. And that is when her trust deepens, her attraction stabilizes, and her respect locks in quietly, without drama, without force, without you ever having to ask for it. This is why these conversations matter more than compliments or grand gestures. They reveal your inner structure. They expose whether you are reactive or responsive, needy or grounded, present or performative, and she always notices, even when she says nothing afterwards silently. When she starts opening up more often, when the problems become personal, recurring, or emotionally layered, something deeper is happening beneath the surface, and this is where most men unknowingly fail the test without ever realizing it. Because now it's no longer just about listening. It's about how she feels after she talks to you. A woman doesn't remember every word you say. She remembers how regulated or dysregulated she feels in your presence. If she feels calmer after speaking to you, your value rises. If she feels more confused, more anxious, or subtly judged, your value drops, even if you meant well. This is female psychology at work, not logic. Many men think the test is, can you help me? But the real test is, do I feel emotionally safe with this man? Safety doesn't mean softness. It means consistency. It means emotional clarity. It means she can express frustration, fear, or doubt without you turning it into an argument, a lecture, or a performance. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. When a woman shares her problems, she is also testing whether you have unresolved emotional wounds of your own. If her story triggers you to rant about your past, complain about women, or turn the conversation back to yourself, she notices immediately. Her body reads that as emotional instability. She may still talk to you, she may still laugh, but something inside her closes slightly. Attraction doesn't disappear loudly, it fades quietly. There is also a power dynamic at play that most men miss. The moment she brings her problems to you, she is momentarily placing herself in a vulnerable position. How you handle that determines whether she sees you as emotionally competent or emotionally burdensome. If you rush to save her, you subtly place yourself below her, trying to earn importance. If you dismiss her, you place yourself above her, disconnected and cold. The sweet spot is beside her, grounded, attentive, and self-contained. This is why timing matters. A grounded man doesn't respond immediately just to fill silence. He allows space. He lets her finish. He doesn't interrupt to prove intelligence. Silence, when calm, is reassuring. It signals confidence. It signals that you are not afraid of emotional depth. Another hidden test is how you speak about responsibility. Women listen closely to whether you frame life as something that happens to you or something you navigate consciously. If you subtly blame others, circumstances, or fate when responding to her problems, she registers that you may do the same when things get hard between you. That creates uncertainty. A man who acknowledges difficulty without victimhood feels reliable. And then there's the test of restraint. Not every problem needs advice, not every emotion needs correction. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is a calm reflection that shows you understood her experience without trying to reshape it. This doesn't make you passive, it makes you perceptive. Understand this clearly. She is not testing you because she wants to manipulate you. She is testing because her nervous system is searching for stability. Attraction grows where safety and polarity coexist. She wants to feel emotionally held, not emotionally handled. If you respond with maturity, she will begin to bring you more of herself, not because she is dependent, but because she feels met. If you respond poorly, she will still smile, still talk, still engage, but she will slowly stop bringing you her inner world. And when that stops, the connection begins to decay. This is why emotionally intelligent men seem magnetic without trying. They don't chase vulnerability. They allow it, they don't weaponize it, they respect it. And in doing so, they quietly pass a test that most men never even realize they are taking. Say next when you're ready for section 3, where I reveal the one response pattern that instantly shifts how she perceives your strength. There is a specific response pattern that changes everything, and once you understand it, you'll realize why some men become emotionally significant without ever trying to be impressive. This pattern isn't about what you say. It's about the frame you hold while she speaks. When a woman shares her problems, she is unconsciously scanning for one thing above all else: emotional leadership. Not control, not dominance, leadership. She wants to feel that someone is present who can hold reality steady while emotions move through it. This is why men who stay calm without becoming distant stand out so sharply. Here's the shift most men never make. Instead of reacting to her emotions, you contain them. That doesn't mean suppressing or ignoring. It means you don't let her emotional state dictate your internal state. You stay grounded, you breathe normally, your tone stays measured, your attention stays focused. Her nervous system picks up on this instantly, even if she can't explain it. Many men think emotional strength means being stoic or silent. That's incomplete. Emotional strength is being responsive without being reactive. It's the ability to acknowledge intensity without amplifying it. When you mirror her emotions too strongly, you create emotional chaos. When you avoid them, you create emotional distance. But when you stay centered, you create emotional safety. Notice what happens when a man responds from centeredness. He doesn't argue with her feelings. He doesn't correct her perspective immediately. He might say something simple, grounded, and honest that shows understanding without surrendering his frame. This tells her something critical. This man can handle complexity without losing himself. There is another layer beneath this. When she shares her problems, she is also observing how you relate to discomfort. Life brings uncertainty, conflict, and stress. If you become visibly uncomfortable when she expresses struggle, she subconsciously doubts your ability to handle future challenges. But if you remain steady, her trust deepens quietly. This is why over-explaining is dangerous. When a man talks too much in these moments, it often comes from anxiety, not care. He's trying to manage the outcome. He's trying to say the right thing. But emotional leadership doesn't need constant explanation. It needs presence. Fewer words, more weight. A grounded man also understands when not to take responsibility for emotions that aren't his. He supports without absorbing. He listens without fixing. He stays available without becoming obligated. This balance signals self-respect, and self-respect is attractive because it implies boundaries. Here's the truth few men accept. When a woman shares her problems, she is deciding whether you are someone she can lean with, not lean on. Leaning with means partnership. Leaning on means dependency. Women desire the first and eventually resent the second. Your responses determine which role you step into. There is also a subtle test of honesty. She notices whether you agree just to keep the peace. A man who agrees with everything feels safe at first, but weak over time. A man who can gently offer a grounded perspective without invalidating her emotions feels solid. That solidity is what creates long-term attraction. This is where many men sabotage themselves by trying to be endlessly agreeable. They fear conflict, so they avoid expressing a grounded viewpoint. But emotional leadership includes the ability to disagree calmly, not to argue, not to dominate, simply to remain authentic while staying connected. When you respond from this place, something shifts inside her. She relaxes, her voice softens, she feels less alone without feeling carried. That is the moment trust turns into attachment, not because you did something dramatic, but because you showed emotional competence. Remember this, she is not testing you to see if you are perfect. She is testing to see if you are real, regulated, and rooted in yourself. When you pass this test, she doesn't announce it. She simply comes back again and again, bringing more of her inner world, because she feels safe doing so. There is a mistake that feels generous, caring, even noble, yet it quietly destroys attraction and drains your emotional energy at the same time. Most men make it without realizing it, and once it happens, the dynamic shifts in a way that is hard to reverse. The mistake is emotional overinvestment before emotional authority is established. When a woman shares her problems repeatedly and a man begins to position himself as her primary emotional processor, therapist, or constant stabilizer, something subtle but damaging occurs. He stops being perceived as a grounded presence and starts being experienced as an emotional utility. She may appreciate him, she may rely on him, but attraction begins to thin out because desire does not grow where polarity collapses. This is where men confuse availability with value. Being available is not the same as being centered. If you drop everything every time she vents, if you stay up late, constantly absorbing emotional weight, if your mood starts tracking her emotional highs and lows, she feels it. Her nervous system reads that you are losing yourself inside her experience. And when that happens, respect quietly erodes. This doesn't mean you should be cold or distant. It means you should be selective with your emotional labor. A grounded man knows that his presence is valuable because it is regulated, not because it is unlimited. He does not sacrifice his stability to prove his care. Another version of this mistake is self-abandonment disguised as support. You stop honoring your own schedule. You stop voicing your own needs. You stop challenging her when something doesn't sit right. You begin to shape yourself around her emotional weather. At first, this feels like connection. Over time, it creates imbalance, and imbalance always kills attraction. Here's the part most men don't want to hear. When you overfunction emotionally, she underfunctions. Not because she is weak, but because the dynamic allows it. She begins to offload regulation onto you instead of building it within herself. And eventually, she feels subtly constrained by that dependence, even if she can't articulate why. This is why emotionally intelligent men don't ask, "How can I fix this for her?" They ask, "How can I remain myself while being present?" That distinction changes everything. There is also the danger of resentment. When you take on emotional weight that isn't yours, it accumulates. You may not feel it immediately, but over time it shows up as frustration, withdrawal, or passive disappointment. She feels that shift too, and now the connection is contaminated by unspoken tension. A strong man does not rescue emotions. He witnesses them. He allows her to process without hijacking the process. He trusts her capacity to navigate her own inner world, and that trust is felt as respect. Another quiet rejection happens when a man becomes predictable in his emotional responses. If you always say the same comforting phrases, always validate without discernment, always side with her against the world, your presence loses edge. Emotional leadership requires discernment, not just reassurance. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let her sit with her own realization after you've acknowledged her experience. Silence, when grounded, gives her space to integrate. It shows confidence. It shows you are not afraid of unresolved emotions. This is also where boundaries matter. A man who can say calmly and respectfully, "I care about you and I trust you to handle this," communicates strength, not abandonment. Strength. He doesn't disappear. He simply doesn't collapse into her problem. When you avoid this mistake, something remarkable happens. She begins to feel stronger in your presence, not weaker. She associates you with clarity, not emotional exhaustion. She feels supported without being smothered, and that combination creates both trust and desire. Understand this deeply. The goal is not to be the man she vents to endlessly. The goal is to be the man whose presence helps her regulate herself. That is emotional authority. That is masculine steadiness. And that is what keeps you from being silently reclassified from potential partner to emotional background noise. Say yes when you're ready for the final section, where I tie everything together and show you how to respond in a way she never forgets. Everything you've heard so far leads to one quiet truth most men never integrate. When a woman shares her problems with you, the moment isn't about her story. It's about the emotional environment you create while the story exists. That environment becomes associated with you, and associations are what shape attachment. She will forget details, she will forget timelines, but her body will remember whether she felt grounded, respected, and steady while speaking to you. That memory becomes a reference point. When life gets heavy, her mind will unconsciously move toward the man who didn't add weight to the weight. This is why the response she never forgets is not clever, dramatic, or deeply emotional. It is regulated, it is present, it is self-contained. It sounds simple, but it is rare. A man who understands this does not rush. He listens fully, then responds from a place that says, "I hear you, and I am not overwhelmed by you." He does not treat her emotions like a problem to eliminate. He treats them like information passing through a stable system. That stability is what creates trust that lasts beyond attraction. Here's the deeper layer. When you respond this way consistently, she begins to see you as someone who can handle her truth, not just her best version. That matters more than charm, more than confidence, more than looks. Because attraction fades when reality arrives, unless emotional competence is already present. This is where men who chase validation lose. They try to say the perfect thing. They fear saying the wrong thing. They monitor her reactions constantly. That anxiety leaks through tone, pacing, posture, and her nervous system reads it as uncertainty. The man who stands out doesn't perform empathy. He embodies it without losing his center. He doesn't need her approval for his response to be valid. He doesn't withdraw if she disagrees. He doesn't over-explain if she's quiet. He stays anchored. This creates something powerful. She feels free to be honest without feeling responsible for your emotional state. Freedom is attractive. Emotional freedom is magnetic. Another truth most men miss is that women don't open up only to be understood. They open up to see if understanding changes how they feel afterward. If she leaves the conversation feeling calmer, clearer, or more self-responsible, your value increases in her internal hierarchy. If she leaves feeling dependent, confused, or emotionally heavy, your value decreases, even if she thanked you. So the response she never forgets is one that gives her dignity, one that trusts her capacity, one that does not steal her agency under the mask of care. This is why emotionally mature men don't become emotional dumping grounds. They become emotional reference points. They don't carry the load, they steady the ground. When you master this, something shifts in how women relate to you across the board. Conversations deepen. Respect stabilizes. Attraction becomes less volatile. You are no longer reacting to emotional tests. You are passing them without effort. And here's the final truth. When a woman shares her problems with you and feels stronger afterward, she associates you with growth. Growth is addictive. Growth is bonding. Growth creates attachment without dependency. That is the line most men never learn to walk. So here's a personal question I want you to answer honestly in the comments. When women open up to you, do they leave feeling calmer and clearer or more emotionally entangled? Think about it. Answer it truthfully. If this spoke to you, like the video, subscribe for more deep psychology that most men never hear, and share this with a friend who needs to understand what women are really testing in these moments.